Hey guys, Pat Divilly here, teaming up with Griffith College to share some simple ideas around embracing change and dealing with uncertainty. I hope yourself and your family are staying well amongst everything that's been happening these last couple of weeks. We have got an interesting couple of weeks behind us and an interesting few weeks and months ahead of us. And so it's up to us to some degree to take control over how we see the situations that are happening. Oftentimes we don't have control over the external and what's happening around us, but we do have control over the meaning that we attach to what's happening. The meaning we attach to an experience essentially becomes our experience. And what I mean by that is 100 people can have the same experience and build 100 different stories in their minds about what that means. I can see change as an opportunity to panic and become overwhelmed and become fearful, or I can see change as an opportunity to grow and to learn and to become excited. So the two tools that I want to share today are the tools of meditation and journaling. We're going to keep it really simple. These are practices that I've put into practice for a number of years now, and I'm using them now more than ever. So journaling to me is about getting the noise that's going on between my ears onto paper. For me, at least, when I've got stories in my head about what's going wrong or what could go wrong, it tends to become like a horror story. I replay those stories time and time again. They get more dramatic every time I play them. And the example I give with that when I tell people about that is to say that if you've ever been bullied in your life or had a horrible experience in a relationship, you'll replay that experience time and time again in your head, and maybe it gets worse and more emotional every time. For me, when I get stuff onto paper, it becomes a lot more practical. So 2 simple exercises on the journaling front that I'd encourage you to have a look at. Could you get pen and paper and explore these 2 prompts? The first prompt is to deal with problems and prescriptions. This to me is about acceptance. So I have to accept that what's happening right now is happening. There's no point in me fighting with reality and pretending change is not about to happen in the coming months. There are going to be changes in the economy. There's going to be changes in the way I live day to day, at least for the foreseeable future. And so there's no point in me fighting with that reality and causing myself stress. I've got to accept what's going to change. So the idea with problems and prescriptions is to write down maybe some of the problems you're going to face in the coming months, and your prescriptions is how you can best handle those problems. As an example, my main work is as a speaker. All of my events for the coming months have been cancelled, and so I'd write that down as one of the things that I'm going to experience in the coming months. There's no point in me fighting with reality and getting upset about what's happened, because it is what it is. I've got to accept it, and I've got to pivot and figure out how can I work through this in a proactive way. So problems and prescriptions with pen and paper. What problems may you face in the coming months? And how could you best respond? How could you pivot? How could you adapt? And how could you do your best with what you've been given? The second question to explore with the journal is to ask this question. If I were to meet you 6 months from now for a coffee, and you'd had a really amazing 6 months, you'd made the most of the 6 months that you had, even if you were housebound, what would have had to happen in those 6 months for you to feel like it was productive, like it was useful time, like you grew and you developed and you learned a lot about yourself? In other words, you're looking at how could you best spend the next 6 months? Again, a lot of us will be housebound. We're in self-isolation. We don't get to do the things we get to do day to day. But how can we make the most of this time? Is it that we're going to exercise a little bit more, maybe take up some meditation, maybe go and study a course that we've never looked at before but always wanted to do? So consider 6 months from now, how would you have hoped you would spend these last 6 months? The final tool I want to share for today is the box breath. So I talk about meditation. Meditation to me is about coming into the present moment. So when we live in fear and we get overwhelmed, usually it's because we're living in the future. We're preempting and figuring out in our minds with our imagination what's going to happen next. Meditation allows us to come back into the present moment and to become a bit more still. It also allows us to move from fight or flight response, which is where we're triggered and we're stressed, into a rest and digest response, where we're effectively sending a signal to our body and our mind that everything's okay. So the box breath that I'm going to share with you is a really simple form of meditation as a starting point. With the box breath, what you're going to do is breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds. So if you place your hand on your belly and breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds, you're going to try really fill your belly. From there, you'll hold that breath for 4 seconds, and then you'll exhale for 4 seconds. Finally, you'll hold the exhale for 4. So effectively, we're drawing a box. 4 seconds in through the nose, 4 second hold. 4 seconds out through the nose or the mouth, whichever is comfortable, and a 4 second hold. If If you set a timer, do this for 5 minutes a day, I promise you it'll have an impact on your ability to be present, to feel a little bit more calm, and just to be a bit more proactive in everything that's happening. So 3 little tools: the acceptance idea of looking at the problems you will face and how you can best respond. The second idea of thinking about how you can best utilize these 6 months. And finally, 5 minutes box breathing every day to put you into a calm state. I hope this is useful. Look after yourselves, and I'll speak to you soon.